In 1957, a little street dog from Moscow changed the history of space forever. She wasn't a scientist and she wasn't a trained astronaut in the way we think of them today. She was Laika, the first living creature to orbit the Earth. But what really happened to her up there, all alone in the vast emptiness of space? Why was there no plan to bring her home? Today, we're going to uncover the heartbreaking and often misunderstood truth behind one of the most emotional chapters in space exploration. This is the real story of Laika, the space dog. So, who was Laika? Before she became a global icon, she was just one of the many stray dogs wandering the cold streets of Moscow. She was a small, mixed-breed female, likely part terrier. The Soviet space program specifically sought out strays like her for a very calculated reason. They believed that these dogs, having already endured extreme cold, hunger, and neglect, would be tougher and more resilient to the harsh conditions of spaceflight than pampered house pets. Laika was chosen from a group of candidates for her calm and docile temperament. Her original name was Kudryavka, meaning little curly, but the world would come to know her as Laika, which means barker. Little did she know this small, trusting dog was about to be launched into history, becoming a pawn in a high-stakes global competition. To understand why Laika was sent to space, we have to go back to the late 1950s, the peak of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a fierce rivalry known as the space race. It was a battle for technological and ideological supremacy. On October 4, 1957, the USSR stunned the world by launching Sputnik 1, the first ever artificial satellite. This was a massive victory for the Soviets and a huge blow to American prestige. The pressure was on for both sides to achieve the next big first. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, wanting to capitalize on the momentum of Sputnik 1, demanded another spectacular space mission to coincide with the 40th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution on November 7, 1957. The timeline was incredibly tight, leaving engineers just 4 weeks to design and build a new spacecraft. Khrushchev wanted something even more impressive than a satellite. He wanted to send a living being into orbit. This would prove that a living organism could survive the launch and the conditions of weightlessness, paving the way for human spaceflight. The mission was rushed, the stakes were sky-high, and a small, stray dog was about to pay the ultimate price for this ambition. Preparing a dog for a journey no one had ever taken was a monumental task. Laika and 2 other dogs, Albina and Mushka, underwent a grueling training regimen designed to simulate the brutal experience of a rocket launch and space travel. To get them used to the cramped confines of the Sputnik 2 capsule, they were kept in progressively smaller cages for periods of up to 20 days. This caused them significant distress. They were placed in centrifuges that simulated the immense G-forces of a rocket launch, and they were subjected to loud noises and vibrations to mimic the liftoff. They were even trained to eat a special high-nutrition gel that would serve as their food and water in space. One of the lead scientists, Dr. Vladimir Yazdovsky, took a personal liking to Laika. In a moment of compassion before the mission, he took her home to play with his children. He later wrote, "I wanted to do something nice for her. She had so little time left to live." It was a small act of kindness in the face of a mission that was, from its very inception, a one-way trip. This is the most difficult part of the story to confront. There was never any plan to bring Laika back. The technology for a re-entry and landing from orbit simply didn't exist yet. The Sputnik 2 spacecraft was built in just 4 weeks, and it lacked a heat shield or parachutes necessary for a safe return. The Soviets knew this. They knew from the moment they selected Laika that she would not survive the mission. Publicly, the official Soviet reports were vague and often misleading. They claimed that Laika would be painlessly euthanized with a poisoned portion of food after several days in orbit. This was the story the world was told, a planned, humane end to a heroic mission. For decades, this narrative persisted. It painted a picture of a controlled, scientific experiment where Laika's sacrifice, while sad, was a necessary and ethically handled step toward human space exploration. However, the truth of what really happened to her in those final, terrifying hours was far more tragic, and it would remain a closely guarded secret for over 40 years. For decades, the official Soviet account of Laika's final days remained unchanged. She had survived in orbit for 4 to 7 days before her planned euthanasia. It wasn't until 2002 at the World Space Congress in Houston, Texas, that the truth was finally revealed. Dr. Dmitry Malyshenkov, one of the scientists involved in the Sputnik 2 mission, admitted that the official story was a fabrication. Laika didn't live for days. She died within hours of reaching orbit. The problem was the rushed nature of the mission. The thermal control system on Sputnik 2 malfunctioned. During the launch, a portion of the spacecraft's thermal insulation tore loose, causing the temperature inside the capsule to skyrocket. While her heart rate, which had tripled during the launch, did eventually slow down, the overheating took a devastating toll. Trapped in a tiny metal sphere, alone and terrified, Laika endured extreme heat and panic. Telemetry data showed that about 5 to 7 hours into the flight, all signs of life from Laika ceased. The hero dog didn't die peacefully as the world had been told. She died from overheating and stress, a far more gruesome and agonizing end. The spacecraft carrying her remains continued to orbit the Earth 2,570 times before it finally burned up upon re-entry into the atmosphere on April 14, 1958. Despite the tragic and arguably cruel nature of her mission, Laika became an instant global phenomenon. She was a hero, a pioneer, a symbol of courage that transcended the political tensions of the Cold War. Her image appeared on stamps, postcards, and memorabilia all over the world. She was celebrated in songs, poems, and stories. In the Soviet Union, she was hailed as a national hero, a testament to the nation's scientific prowess. Monuments were erected in her honor, including a prominent statue at the facility where she was trained in Moscow. This statue depicts a dog standing proudly on top of a rocket that morphs into a human hand, cradling her toward the stars. While some of this was state-sponsored propaganda, the global outpouring of affection for Laika was genuine. People everywhere were captivated by the story of the little stray who had touched the stars. She became a martyr for science, a symbol of sacrifice in the pursuit of a greater human dream. Her mission, as flawed and heartbreaking as it was, undeniably paved the way for human spaceflight. Less than 4 years later, Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit the Earth, a feat made possible by the data gathered from Laika's tragic flight. So what is the hidden message in Laika's story? It's a powerful and complicated tale about the very best and worst of humanity. It's a story of our boundless ambition, our relentless drive to explore the unknown, and our incredible capacity for innovation. But it's also a sobering reminder of the ethical costs of that ambition. Laika's sacrifice forces us to ask difficult questions about the price of progress. Was it right to sacrifice a living creature in this way, especially when there was no hope for its survival? Oleg Gazenko, one of the leading scientists on the project, expressed his profound regret years later. He said that, "The more time passes, the more I'm sorry about it. We shouldn't have done it. We did not learn enough from this mission to justify the death of the dog." Laika's story is not just about a dog in space. It's a mirror reflecting our own values. It teaches us that as we reach for the stars, we must also hold on to our humanity. Her legacy is a permanent reminder that with great power comes great responsibility, and that compassion must always have a place in our quest for knowledge. Laika, the little street dog from Moscow, was sent to space to die, but in doing so, she became immortal. Her story continues to inspire and challenge us more than 60 years later. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's most emotional stories. If you found this video moving or informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more stories like this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What does Laika's story mean to you? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.